as a society, we like to compare so much. And that's what happens right from childhood. So and so, as they say, Sharmaji's son, Sharmaji's son and Sharmaji's daughter become the comparison all the time. And that's how I think young ones define success in their head. With all the social media coming in, it only enhances that feeling of not being successful, rather than saying that success has got so many dimensions to it. And this is something I feel, how do we get this across to youngsters that, there are a million ways to success, and success is defined by yourself.
Choose your own.
Yeah,
No,
choose your own thing.
Very good
That's
point.
so important,
Very
for
good
us
point.
to understand. So, as education institutions, as parents in society, what is the messaging that we are continuously giving? Even new age parents, are we telling our kids that figure out the world for yourself? I don't seem to hear that very often from a lot of
in
people.
fact, taking I was having this conversation with our leadership, right? So we have this distinguished alumni series. I said the distinguished alumni series always seems to show a one clear
Exactly.
definition of success.
Yeah.
There is an alumnus in from
Yeah,
an institution who went and became a monk, and then he's now is
Sai
in,
Sampath.
no, his name is.
No, there are people.
There
who
are many
taking
such
it.
people, and we are not showing those at all. And what we are showing is always a CEO who's done well or an entrepreneur who's
Yes,
done well.
that's a very good point. So, and to what Uma said also, you're stereocasting the success.
Success.
Hence, you cannot tell people that there are million other ways, and your way, आपका सफर अलग है, आपका सफर है.
बिल्कुल.
ये
And
हमेशा
I'm
हम लोग
happy.
नाकाम रहते हैं इसमें.
Yeah, that I'm happy, probably not to have the things that you have, but I'm happy in another way. I've succeeded in another way. I don't know whether we publish those stories as much. Okay, there is a, Gaur Gopal Das who's become very famous doing what he's doing, but there must be so many others who have also taken that route and feel so happy inside, but we don't know them. We don't know
See,
them.
I think the more fundamental thing is to, rather than success, is contentment. It is about, see, at any point of time, if you take anyone, they are somewhere in the food chain. Somebody has 5 crores, somebody has 50 crores, somebody has 500 crores, somebody has 1,000 crores. But you are still, even if you have 1,000 crores, in a food chain, you have hundreds of people who are above you. So this is not a race that you will ever win. And even somebody like Musk doesn't stay on the top, right? There's always the other guy, Bernard, who's coming in and taking it away every few months. So it's not, so the point is that if we can, at least to my kids, I have always been repeatedly saying this. We have a lot more than what we need to live, right? And most of us have been successful in life in the context of career, in the context of being able to buy material things. But contentment is a very different definition altogether. I mean, and at least my life principle, and this is a conundrum, you guys will have to deal with it. Always be happy, never be satisfied has been my life motto, right? And always be happy in conjunction with never be satisfied with what you do and what you can do, but always be happy with what you have.
Yeah.
And this is the reality of life. At any point of time, you could be in a career, you could be in business, you could be somewhere else, you could be a housewife, right? It doesn't matter. How do you deal with that sense of contentment at that given point in time?
Now, Hari, just one point on that, and really want to bring it to gender again here. A lot of women, I feel a little worried for everybody in the situation we are in terms of mental health and how people are taking it. But a lot of women who've studied, are, feel really, find it very difficult to accept that at some point in time they may not be doing something, or they may have to take a step back for something else. And that's leading to a lot of conflict within families in terms of, whose role is a particular thing to do and all that. And I think from times immemorial, these have been very seamlessly handled, right, in the past. But today, I also feel very worried that, there's a lot of conflict on account of some of these notions that we've kept in our head in terms of being individualistic, being successful, being ambitious and things like that. And so one of the things I often think is when we talk about careers, am I exposed enough to know that, it's like water, right? Your life has got to be like water. You can meander, you can cross over, you can go over things, you can go around it, and yet reach where you have to.
Absolutely.
And that is something which is, I believe, a cause of worry in my mind, because that's leading to mental health issues within families, within society, within a classroom. Right? Why does a placement season bring so much of anxiety in people? Okay? I mean, thank God that we're over the day zero and day one, but even then, your package, your posting, your this, that, everything is something to feel so worried about. I mean, like, this suits me. I want to be in Hyderabad, it suits me.
But then Uma, think about it differently.
Yeah.
You are competitively fighting it out to get into this college. You are struggling it out to become the topper on grade and so on, right? I mean, that's a whole game people are going to. Somebody somewhere wants to be ahead of the others. Now, when you see 5 people do that, the 6th and the 7th and the 8th says, maybe it's time for me to do something about it. Otherwise, I don't know if I'm going to be in the last few, right? And being content in that is something that's not easy to deal with. So it's only natural that when the placement season happens, you're like, did I get the highest package or did he get the highest package, right? Now that pressure, right?
And that's also only one, that's the only measurable metric of better
Success,
This is the
better.
classic monkey problem, right? By the 10th monkey, the monkey doesn't know why it's
Why-
behaving
why
like
it
this.
is.
Like, you
The
know.
way I've defined for myself, or anybody who asks me, the way I see this is success, and I like the word, contentment. Success in my mind, the way I define it, is what others think about you. It's never about me. See, how can you say that I'm successful? It's what others think about. And the moment you pivot that phase, then it doesn't matter to you, because you might be thinking differently of me, he might be thinking differently of me, so how do I care? Right? So contentment, that's the piece that I was trying to
So my
highlight
limited
as well.
point was, in the 2 years journey or 4 years journey, whatever course you take up, are there inputs that make you look inward and think about your life? Or are you going through that whole hog of 2 years with the same competitive spirit with which you've started? So that means somewhere the system has not been able to sort of make you think a little more than where you started the journey to understand what success is like, right? And the second point is, people come from different backgrounds and mellows, so different things in terms of success for different people. Somebody who's come from a rural background, they have to make it with a particular CTC. That's very important. But today, thankfully, I think we also hear of a lot of people who don't go through the placement season because they want to do something else. Somebody, like an entrepreneurial venture right at the start. That is great to see, but it's still very limited. So, your 2 years, you're going with that same competitive spirit.
Just tying a little bit back with what you said on gender and the way we are defining success as well, I feel we have not done as a society, it's changing now, but I believe success in family matters also is being defined by how much you are earning or what position you have and things like that. Unless and until we change that attitude and say success is also growing a kid who is having everything that they need from a mental health and physical health standpoint, the moment you define that as a success,
The responsibility.
then it doesn't matter, right? Then you are happy doing that and you don't care about that competitive.
But are we looking at it that way?
We are not. That's
We're
the
all in
problem.
corporates, right? When somebody takes a break and comes back,
Correct.
how open are you to taking them in?
Correct.
This
So-
is really an issue,
So a few, and I can vouch for the companies. I have been very thankful there. Deloitte and Novartis both. We made that shift pretty much that the parental leaves started to become 6 months in our company and things like that. So that we are forcing people on the other gender side to go and take care, so that it's balancing out and things like that. There was no policy or anything, but we took that step and managed that. So
So I mean, I've seen a lot of colleagues in the multinationals whose the women employees was not into business. So they were gym instructors. They went to different alternate professions, and I think they had a pretty good time together. You know, so one is taking the lead in something else,
Right.
and somebody else in another thing. But in our society, I think that also becomes a bit of an issue. So I think we set those standards of success, which pushes us to the corner and say like, and then you feel frustrated saying, oh, am I successful?
I know the
And that's
topic is
something
very
that-
different, but I do want to highlight what I loved about. So I was working in Copenhagen at some point in time. Their policy, and I'm talking, I don't know if it has changed or not, but back in 2001, I know for a fact. So their policy on family is between husband and wife, you get 1 year.
Wow,
You can be working for different companies,
super.
but there is like you have to pass on that message how many days you are taking, how many days you are taking, and you, between the two you take 1 year. So just thought I'll highlight.
But coming back, by the way, that's a very, in my opinion, a very wise kind of a policy, really. Yeah, very nice. Now, but coming back to the point on students and what we're dealing with, see, this pivot is also something that one has to consider. How often does one make that in life? Right, and if that pivot is a little too often, then it becomes a somersault, like we say, right? And it could be quite complex.
So true.
Because I always keep telling guys, you know, like manage your salaries every month, your health every year, and your careers every 5 years. I mean, at least that's been my kind of runway for a career. I mean, any role you do, at least if you don't do it for 4-5 years, you really haven't done enough. If people think that in 1 year they've learned it all, I mean, that's the biggest bullshit you are doing to it, because you never go into the detail and you never see it in different environments, right? You need to see it in different companies, maybe you need to see it in different industries, maybe. But if you're in supply chain, you got to do it for a period of time. If in 2 years you think you have understood everything about supply chain, that's a big issue. I mean, upstream and downstream, you got to understand it well. So that's another important thing on pivots.
Can I make, so maybe a little bit of contrary thing that I'm seeing. So by the way, I completely agree with this. And I've been very thankful to one mentor of mine who in my first year told me, at least spend 5 years, don't think anything else. And he was so right, because in the 5 years I saw all my peer really rose, they jumped companies, did multiple things, rose very high up than me. But I got stuck to that. I'm like, nee, 5 years bola hai, 5 years. So I stuck to that. And I saw a drastic change after 7-8 years. So I completely agree with you. However, and maybe it's a question to you as well, Professor. The more HR articles that I read, so I was very convinced, right? But the more HR articles nowadays that I read, both from employees' side and from companies' side, they are suggesting that everybody should change that in 18 months, because then you have the hunger, you know you want to prove yourself. Once you have done, then you don't want to do something else. So that's what I'm reading. So is that something?
It's a rolling stone.
Okay.
18 months, I do not
Because I have
agree.
read HBR articles which has actually suggested that this is how it should happen. So
I don't know. I mean, see, I have, you know, like I said, I have done now 4 different jobs in my life, right? From HR to marketing to consulting to, and I'm saying proper business consulting to down to healthcare.
healthcare, yeah.
I'm telling you, 5 years, 7 years down the line, and I have the wisdom of having worked for 30 years in the industry. So it's not like I just walked into healthcare, right? So in spite of that, at the end of 5 or 8 years now,
You're still
I
learning.
still feel like, my God, there's so much to do, so much to
Agreed.
do. Now, I can always tell myself, I know it all, like I told you right
Yeah.
at the beginning. You know, you can define the universe to be a very narrow piece, and
Yeah.
then say, I know this universe, right? The other way of looking at it is, have you really looked outside that boundary and dealt with it? So 18 months looks tragically small for me.
But that's what I read, so I don't know, I just wanted to verify, because they say the hunger is there, you want people to prove yourself, so
18 months, one company, another company is still passing.
Within a company.
I'm glad to hear that.
You're
glad to hear
assuming
that, because I
6
have
months
spent
is
5
what
plus.
you need at least to understand the terminology of the industry and
Yeah.
new job.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You have essentially 12 months to prove yourself.
Yeah.
Remove your vacation and holiday time, you essentially have 8 months. So they got their arithmetic grossly wrong, whichever their article
Okay,
is.
good.
I think also that there's one distinction here. There are people who are great employees and there are leaders, right? employees who are just looking to enhance their paycheck. Probably every 18 months you jump, you get a slight hike every time you jump. But you're never going to rise to leadership doing this particular method, right? What we're all talking about is being a leader in an industry. So I
Hari,
think that's
just,
a distinction.
Yeah, just to point to what you said, Hari. You know, if today somebody aims to become a CEO at 30 or 35, you know, in any case, the career graph is shrunk or career path is shrunk, right? So I'm just thinking that, you know, the way we thought about our careers probably are not relevant anymore in today's times. And so you got to shrink it, but really how much is a big question. But if you have to be a CEO at 35, you should have experienced many things to get to that point. And probably that's one of the you know, thought that comes in the article saying that, you know, you need to look at it and things like that. I don't know if there's a right or wrong way of doing it, because the people who don't work anywhere and still become CEOs. So, you know, there's not one path of getting to that point. And I was just listening to one of the Audible books which says that you need to have different mentors. You can't have one mentor. If you have a mentor who's much older than you and wise, probably that's not the journey you're on.
Yeah.
So that's not the right person for you.
It's a
And it
reverse
could be a
mentoring.
peer who's your mentor. It
Or
could
a
be a
reverse
peer.
mentoring.
Yeah. Or reverse, and I'm saying reverse is for people who are on the other side.
On the
But I'm
younger,
saying-
younger guys
Yeah.
mentoring us, because
Correct.
we sometimes need to learn.
Correct. That's for the elder ones to take that mentoring. But I'm saying a youngster who's raring to go, the mentor is not always this wise person who spent
Absolutely.
3 decades or 4 decades. It could be a peer from whom they learn. So I think the notion of learning itself is changing hell of a lot, and more discussions and dialogue brings more wisdom to people than necessarily someone who spent like many years. And that's to your point, saying that you have to keep reinventing yourself to be relevant for people to come and talk to you. Otherwise, they say, yeah, I like him, probably I'll go for a life advice, but I'm not going to go to him for a career advice. You know, so I think that is also one of the paradoxes that one has to handle in today's world so
Uma,
much.
you're saying accelerating the learning because
Yeah,
the path
yeah.
is made shorter, given whatever the ways of the world around us now. There are few ways of doing it, right? The way to accelerate is you do entrepreneurship. That's the biggest rocket ship you can, you know, but rockets do blast. And that's the fastest way. Than in an organized setup where you organically go year by year, I think it's rarely you will reach, or then the 5 to 7 year rule will apply. That is the way you go, because this rate at which the organization is growing will never accommodate your whims and fancies or your genuine talents.
Yes.
So my belief is, if you are to be on a rocket ship, you have a choice. Don't come into this super fast express
Jump into
train
that.
bus, whatever that is. It's more organized, it has tracks, it has guardrails, etc. So, horses for courses.
Yeah. I just want to, on the last point, I just want to tell you that, you know, youngsters are now very bold to make some of these decisions with their career, and I really admire them for that. Your curriculum may not want you to do a few things, but the youngsters who approach us saying that we would like to do this, are you willing to do that? So that's something I really find very positive. If I consider my own son in his 3rd year of engineering, he started working with an entrepreneur in his campus. It was, you know, they were building this vaccine, what do you call that, covers for the vaccine. And he's an embedded engineer, so he jumped into it to do this work. And he said, you know, I'll manage the grades, but this experience is something very, very important for me.
Very good.
Now, who told him this? Who told him this? I don't know. It's not that everybody else was doing it. And that is a kind of stretch that they're willing to make to get to somewhere in life. And that is something I find really positive in the students of today. The question is industry open to giving them those chances to get in? Beyond the few that we often hear, you know. So how do we develop that within industry for them to receive them and tell them that, look, you know, come, you know, do whatever you want to and we'll guide you to get to that point. I think
Industry
that
Open is one, and the other side is Academia Open.
Academia, of
Right,
course.
you know,
Yeah.
to tell you, to understand that the student has a portfolio of things to do in his life, and academic grades is
Gives
one
him the
of the many
roundedness.
things to do, which is the tough thing that we have discussion. So, thank you. I think we will end this now. I think it was very, 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 very interesting. I had a lot of learning from it, and hopefully this session will help the students to take a lot of inspiration to way they carve out their careers. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
a lot,
Thank you.
Professor Giri.